Well, happy Sunday, everybody. It's the update for the week. This last week, I had an invitation to speak at a traumatic brain injury forum for veterans down in Brookings. So I was down there on Friday, and it gave me a chance to also talk with some legislators about my idea around a measure so that the state returns 5% of income taxes back to their county of origin. I'm still working on that one, trying to get some groups together, and I've had a lot of people interested, and nobody that's ever done it. So it we're making progress, but still an objective because if we could get that through, and this is a project over the course of 2 years, probably it's not an imminent solution, but if it could get done, currently our property taxes are the only real source of general funds in a county. So, and with measures 5 and 50, our property tax increases are capped at 3%. So, when staff increases are averaging 3.4% over a 5 year period, property tax system is never going to make it. So, this focus on not increasing anybody's taxes, but requiring the state to return a portion of their already paid income taxes back to the county in which they reside. So that's still going on, but the nutshell there is I spoke at a panel on traumatic brain injuries in veterans and just what some of those effects look like. Interesting side for folks. Something I observed working in mental health and with folks with disabilities is the point at which they suffer their traumatic brain injury is often the spot that their memory keys back to. So I had two examples I gave. One was a lady who her ex-husband hit her in the head with a baseball bat a few times. She couldn't go back to what she was doing. She used to work. She had a master's degree. Well, I guess has a master's degree, but couldn't go back to the field she was in. But her frame of reference was often to that point where that was what she was doing. So you get that disconnect that makes things tricky. And there was another lady that I worked with who had fallen and hit her head when she was young in the 70s, and that time frame was still her frame of reference. And trying to catch up to the current was very difficult. So what I encouraged folks to consider at this meeting was in the case of a veteran, I mean, one of these folks, traumatic situation, the other one, pure accident. But you think about if the frame of reference of the person is that they've been spending months in a combat zone running and gunning, or they've been spending months running convoys and an IED goes off and shakes the brain around a little bit, even if it's not direct force, the concussion can do it. That becomes the person's frame of reference, that time frame in their life. So when we consider PTSD, we also want to consider traumatic brain injuries because those can be a substantial multiplier in the problem. So that was some of what I talked about at that thing. Today, actually, I was up at the home show. I forgot the name of the company. It was Oregon Curb Appeal, or I think that was the group. And then the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce and a lot of other sponsors brought back the Oregon Home Show. So that program, it's been almost a decade since it happened last, but it brings a lot of contractors, landscapers, people that can help you take your house to the next level into one place. This case, it was the mall. They were there for 3 days, Pony Village Mall, and it was cool to see. I was asked today was the day they were honoring veterans as well, so I told folks, once you've lived out of a barracks in about 3 sea bags, you really start to appreciate the appearance of a house and getting to live in an actual house. So that got some laughs, but it is what it is. Something I was working on last week. I've mentioned, I think, a few times now that I went through a roster of county properties to identify what we might surplus. The list of things that I saw that looked like they were supposed to be roads but never became roads has been submitted to the Community Development Department to check on. to see if we can get those out of our rolls and into some citizens' hands, or just whatever else we're going to do with it. If we get it back into private owners' hands, it's one more sliver of property on the tax roll, and it's one less thing our folks have to keep track of if we don't need it. As an example, one of these things I saw looked like it was supposed to be a road, and it came down, made a loop, made another loop, and all that was down there was a guy's house over on this side. So why do we have that? We don't need it. So that's what they're reviewing. Talked with some of the folks in the court system. The idea came about for a justice court locally, and that's a big, long string of topic, but just to simplify it, basically, it would give us a little quicker control over some smaller crimes to process, and it would change how the funding goes around. So right now, depending on the case, as an example, a case might come through, it goes through the circuit court, half the money from the case goes to the state, half goes to the county, maybe. The numbers differ. But in the justice court version, little to none goes back to the state, and problems that happen here basically fund solutions here instead of that split. So that's kind of the goal there. And I was talking with Sheriff's Department about just planning, strategic ideas on this group may want to rent a police officer here, like one of the cities may want to have some time that they secure because they can't afford a whole thing themselves, or the Elliott folks want to fund an officer, and then I've talked about safety fees to be added onto some of our tourist primarily, RV parks, so that the tourists are paying into law enforcement. How we would put all these pieces together to make a more sustainable and broadly stretching law enforcement on the patrol side. So it's a lot of ideas flying around on that one. And I appreciate that they work with me on it, because I don't always have good ideas, but I've got lots of them. So they help me weed out which ones are good and which ones aren't as good. A chunk of one day for me was just ICS training. So that's instant command managed systems. I forget the exact acronym. Basically, it's disaster planning. FEMA requires us as commissioners to have completed ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800. And if you ever want to see what those are, you can look up FEMA ICS 100, and it'll take you right to the first one. I think 200 was about 230 pages. So slides. But yeah, it takes some time. So that basically ended up being one of my days. I'd already done 100, so I just had to do 200, 700, and 800 in one push. And it's got like chain of command, span of control, just general stuff that we have to know. Business after hours was cool this week. They had a business after hours, the Chamber of Commerce did, over at Banner Bank in Coos Bay, and I got to connect with some folks. Those are good events. If you've got a business or you're just interested in a local business, you can come by one of those Chamber of Commerce events, the business after hours, and you meet a lot of people that are doing a lot of things. So I was able to connect some folks that are looking at hotel investments with, I will be connecting with Visitors Convention, because it was right before the weekend hit, so I didn't have time. And then there's some folks that are they're having problems with insurance just getting carriers, to the extent that some of our local nonprofits are considering making a consortium pool, just pooling their money together to make a self-insurance sort of system like the cities in Oregon do. And that happened for the same reason. Carriers were becoming resistant to public entities, so they the cities got together and said, we'll make our own. And the reason for that is the companies were doubling rates year after year in the 80s. So, doesn't always work out good, and sometimes the outcome is people do for themselves. Let's see. Yep, got a developer that needed more project managers, and I got a friend that's got project managers, and I think he would like more development. So put two and two together on that one. So yeah, that came with some good connections. This coming week, I've got a meeting. I'm going to be on the board for the CCD. That's the Business Development Corporation that covers Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties. I'm going to be the representative from the commission to that entity now. So most of my experience with them in the past has just been being aware of how they work with business loans, grant programs. They also, though, set the economic roadmap for the region. So they lay out a plan on how we're going to stimulate economic growth, what the targets look like, kind of what I'm trying to do, talking with the individual cities to see what they want, but this is done still community driven. It's just done differently from what I'm looking at. I was invited to a big meeting of the Coos Forest Coos Forest Protection Association. So they do wildfire protection here. Not a state entity. I thought they were. They're not, which I appreciate. It sounds like they've got a little more flexibility and ability to operate quickly. So that's pretty cool. I'll be joining them. We have another meeting of the Coos County Urban Renewal Agency this week. So we'll see where everyone has landed in terms of what we want to do with it. We did have a meeting about it. I think it wasn't this week. I think it was the week before. Might have been this week, but we reached that we were going to hold off on dissolving it outright while we look at what the port's proposal is, what potential uses there are. I mentioned they came up with some stuff verbally. I'm looking at the thing in writing, but yeah, it looks like they might have come up with a positive solution that'll achieve pretty much the same outcome. And then in the long run, we'll see where that goes. I'm not saying too much about it. I'll have that meeting this week, and then I'll say things about it. Rural Solutions is having a housing production strategies meeting. So Rural Solutions is a representative from the governor's office that every area in Oregon has one. So this is Rural Solutions talking about what we need to make more housing out here, which, I mean, we've needed things for a long time, and we've actually got some momentum right now between the 105 units at the old Bangor site, the 400 houses going up behind Cascade. I've heard about other projects here and there. So we've got some momentum, and we just have to keep it up. That's the challenge. And another thing I started working on last week, just getting back in touch with some of the folks at the state offices that handle the money around the Elliott Forest, because in my notes, they are going to start cuts this year. That's their objective, is to start cuts this year. So if they start cutting the forest this year, Coos County needs to start seeing some money this year, because if they're cutting down trees out here, our citizens have to benefit as well. And yeah, just cutting the trees isn't enough. If the state's going to make money in the forests in Coos County, then the citizens of Coos County need to get their piece. So that is a quick run through update and what last week and what this week will look like. So everybody have a good week, be safe, and we will talk to you later.